What's up, everyone? My name is Tyler. You are watching Mom's Basement MMA, and today I'm speaking with an undefeated welterweight contender from Memphis, Tennessee. You can catch his next fight on August 2nd, where he'll be making his PFL debut. His name's Kevin Pease, and he joins me right now. Kevin, welcome back to the program, sir. I'm glad that we could link up. I always enjoy getting you on my channel and getting an opportunity to chop it up with you, man. You're one of my favorite people to interview.
It's good to be back, brother, as always, and I'm just happy we got another fight and something to talk about, you know?
Yes, sir. Well, here's one thing we can talk about. CFFC 131, you fought a very tough guy, CJ Lafragola. Talk to me about that bout. Like, we chatted leading up to that fight, and you kind of told me more or less kind of how you expected that fight to go. When you look back on it in hindsight today, did it more or less go according to plan?
It did. It went perfect. I really loved that fight for me, and it really helped me grow as a fighter. I never, props to CJ, I never competed against a guy who had so much belief that he could out wrestle me. So just having that kind of opponent in front of me and getting to show everybody else that I have more tools than just what you've seen in fights, and bring those tools out in a big way, and just win a different type of fight.
Were you surprised that Lafragola went the distance with you? And was there a point in that bout where you felt like you were very, very close to getting him out of there?
Dude's got a big head, man. He could take a shot good, because I was hitting him with overhands that a lot of people fall from or get shaken up, and he was taking them good. I was hitting him with big elbows on the side of his eye right here. Big knees, big body kicks, and I was being heavy on top. So it really just shows how tough he was to hang in there and keep working and keep trying to strike and shooting takedowns the whole way through.
Kevin, you are a guy that's been on that 170-pound prospect list. Like, people all over the country know who you are, and we've been very impressed by what it is that you've been able to do in the cage. In the aftermath of the Lafragola fight, kind of tell me, like, when you looked at that landscape, like, welterweight, it's kind of open out there, I feel, and there really is kind of like a tight list of 170ers out there. Obviously, you're leading the pack. You're on the forefront of said list, but there's a shortage of exciting welterweights. And I was curious, like, when you looked at that landscape, you continued your winning ways, 5-0. Were you of the mindset that, like, the next time you go out there to perform, like, you were going to get a big stage, you were going to get a very big opportunity? Can you kind of walk me through, when you were taking into account the totality of the circumstances, did you think your sixth pro fight was going to be a big one?
I feel like all my fights are big fights. I feel like every opponent I've faced, it's been big, and just the questions around me, seeing who I am at that particular moment, or how am I improving. I feel like all my fights are pretty big, but I knew the next one was going to be really big. I thought it was going to be for the welterweight championship, and I thought me and the company had an understanding that that was what was next for me, and I was very excited and grateful for the opportunity. That didn't come to fruition. They decided to go with another route, and it just forced me to pivot and think, okay, I'm not going to get what I want. So what do I want to work with next? So I reached out to my management and asked for some help, and we talked about going to Fury in Texas, because I love their pool of fighters, and I don't just want to be with one place. I want a full experience for my MMA career. So I was excited to get in a new pool of welterweights. Fury's like an exciting company. They got a lot of guys going to Contender Series and hot prospects. We were looking through opponents. Funny enough, the opponent I'm fighting next was one of those guys. But for some reason, for that date, for Fury, he didn't want to compete. So I'm going through Fury, getting ready, thinking I'm going to get in the cage in September, spending some time with my family, and then I get the call about my next big opportunity with PFL.
Well, talk to me about that, because obviously PFL, I mean, you're talking about a major MMA organization, and I know that you split your time in Memphis, but then I also know that you do a lot of your camps at Killcliff. There are a lot of people that I know that you call teammates, that you call friends, that compete in PFL. What made you say yes to them?
I've always loved PFL. I've always watched all the 70s around the world, and since they started their company, their 170 division has always been top tier to me. I was a fan of Ray Cooper winning his titles. I was a fan of Maga Millions and his 2 titles. So I've always kept tabs on that division, not to mention my teammate Impa going in there and turning himself into a star. And so I've always just loved the PFL and loved that there's other options for fighters out there. And when I got that opportunity to compete on like a world stage in my backyard, essentially, I just couldn't resist it.
Is this like a one-time sort of deal, or are you going to be tied up with these guys for a while? Can you talk a little bit in terms of just where can we expect to see you compete for the rest of this year?
I should be with them for the rest of the year. It's not a long deal. Like my last one I have with CFFC was 3 fights. This is 1 fight with an option. So they can choose to bring me back or they can choose to let me go. One of the big things I always look for in my deals is that they keep me active and keep me rolling. I don't like to be sat out or, there's no time to waste. So PFL obliged with us on that, and I was grateful for that. And hopefully we can get 2 great fights in and see what's next with anybody.
Your next opponent, Nick Meck, he's a 7-1 guy. He seems like a very solid fighter. What's your take on Meck when you look at this guy? You kind of look at what it is that he's been able to accomplish. 7-1 record, that definitely stands out. What are your thoughts on your opponent?
I think he's a strong guy. I think he's powerful. I think he's athletic. I think that wrestling base and those gifts he has have gotten him a long way. I don't think he's faced anybody like me. I don't think he's as polished as his record would show. And, with any of these guys, they claim like, oh, he's the next best thing here. Oh, he's got this. I show how complete of a fighter I am, and I can exploit wherever your weakness is at. I can find it and exploit it. And I believe Nick Meck isn't going to be any different.
Kevin, one of your teammates, JP St. Louis, fought Meck already, and that was back at CFFC 125. Have you had the opportunity to pick JP's brain about sharing the cage with Meck? And does having a teammate that has fought this guy before, is that an advantage in your opinion?
Of course. Yes and no. I can pick his brain all I want, and I have, but that doesn't mean Nick Meck could show up as a completely different guy in there. So I'm ready for the best welterweight to come at me every single time. And I just show up, try to be my best. And I believe it'll get my hand raised that night.
As far as the matchup with Meck is concerned, like I think about you and I think about grappling. I think about wrestling right away. I think about submissions. And do you believe that the fight is going to play out in a way where you're going to actually have to use all of your MMA skills and maybe not so much the wrestling and grappling? Like, do you predict this will be a complete MMA fight, or do you think you're just going to be able to overpower him and exploit your strength and get this fight down to the canvas as you have done in a lot of your other prior fights?
I believe like the CJ fight was a great fight for me to prepare me for this one, because it showed I had to bring out my complete arsenal. I have other things that I could have used in that fight that I didn't bring out that I see the opportunity for in this one. And I think I will have to fight a complete fight because it's just the most efficient way to compete with him. I'd be doing myself a disservice where I see his holes in these areas and where he lacks in his game and me not use those against him. So it will be a complete fight. I'm going to hurt him. And depending upon how he responds is how the fight's going to go.
With the PFL, obviously, there's a big weapon that's taken away. Like, you're not allowed to use elbows in the PFL. And for you, does that change things? Does that change things from a tactical perspective? And do you have to maybe change up your game plan a little bit, because that's a weapon I've seen you use before? And obviously in this format, you're not going to be able to do that.
It's very sad I can't use elbows, and he's extremely lucky I can't use elbows. But I have so many other weapons, it's just not going to be enough for him. There's so many other shots I can hit him with, so many things he's open for, and after I took my elbow pads off in sparring, I've already adjusted and it won't make any difference.
Kevin, obviously, this is a major organization that you'll be competing with, and this fight's going to be happening in your home state of Tennessee. I'm sure you're very, very excited about that. Is there an added layer of excitement for this one, being as you'll be able to compete essentially in your backyard, fighting on ESPN, fighting for the PFL? That those are like huge milestones. Not everyone gets those opportunities. Like, can you tell me, like, how excited are you to go out there and perform on this stage against a high-level guy such as Meck?
It's a dream come true. You know, ever since I was wrestling in high school and just dreaming of competition, competing on a world stage where I feel valued and getting paid handsomely for it is just amazing. It's my dream. You know, I never had a dream of I got to be with these specific 3 letters or here. I just dreamed about competing on world stages, and I get to do that this time, and it's just such a cherry on top that it's in Nashville, so close to me, and that so many of my fans from Tennessee get to come out and just be a part of it. And I got a couple other guys, Linton Vassell and Alex Pregande, Jaleel Willis. I've trained with these guys for years, and it's just going to be awesome to share the moment with them and just fight our hearts out.
Kevin, for a lot of people, it's going to be an introductory lesson into what it is you're all about. Now, I've been watching you compete for years in multiple organizations, but for the country, for a big sample size of the MMA fan base, it's going to be their very first time watching you perform. What can they expect when they watch you step into the cage here in a few days?
They can expect intensity, pressure, options from every position. I don't get to any spot in the fight and I don't know what to do. I have an option from everywhere. And you're just going to see a lot of heart and perseverance and hopefully a dominating performance like I always aim for.
The PFL, right? If you could pretend like I'm a PFL suit, right? What can they expect out of you by bringing you into this organization, by bringing you into this fold? What can they expect by having Kevin Pease on the PFL roster?
They can expect to have one of the top talents in MMA, you know, one of the future stars of this sport, and someone who loves to compete, someone who loves to get to work, and someone who prepares for every fight of his career like it's for the UFC title or any world title. You know, I try to bring it on the highest level I can manage every time.
Kevin, when I think of you, when I think about your skill sets, when I think about the things that I've seen you do before, I can't help but think like PFL regular season, like you are a perfect fit for something like that. And is that something you look at and you're like, man, if they give me an opportunity to compete in that format, I'm all for that. Was that like one of the reasons why you signed with the PFL, to kind of prove to them that you can hang and you can compete with some of the best, and that regular season is something you'd like to be a part of one day?
Of course, that season's very exciting. It's especially at my weight class, it's extremely high level. Like I would immediately get to jump in, and any win I would take in that season would be huge names for my resume, which is one thing I've aimed for my whole career, to, you know, collect top heads. And yeah, I want to show everybody that, you know, put your money on Sweet Pea, and he's going to give you a good show. He's going to come to compete, and he's going to bring the heat.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tune in here in a few days where Kevin Pease will be taking on Nick Meck. It'll be a very exciting fight, and it'll be on ESPN, so everyone should be able to watch that. If you're not watching that, I don't know what to tell you. You must not like MMA. Kevin, I appreciate your time. I'd be remiss to not ask you one very, very important question. Obviously, we had a title fight last night at welterweight, and now we have a brand new champion. His name's Belal Muhammad, and a guy that you're pretty familiar with, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Those two have been chirping at each other here for a little bit, and I know that Shavkat and you train a little bit. And can you tell me, like, how do you see a matchup between those two going? Do you think Shavkat just blows Belal Muhammad out of the water, or do you think that would be a really, really difficult fight for him?
I think that's a extremely competitive fight. I think Belal is like one of the unsung heroes of MMA. Like, I don't think he'll ever get his credit, but he's one of the top fighters in the world. If you look at his win streak, his resume, you know, the amount of the dominance in which he wins his fights, like the guy comes out pretty unscathed a lot of times. he's one of the best in the world, and it's awesome. He finally got the validation for that last night, beating Leon when everyone was kind of scoffing at the idea that he is one of the best welterweights. And I think Shavkat has that level of talent to where he could be one of the best. So I think that fight is very competitive. I think Bilal, I think Shavkat's such a warrior that he could fight a lot smarter than he does, but he just likes to go in for the kill. And I think Bilal is like a tactician. So I just think that fight's so high level. I think they both take a chunk out of each other, and, it's going to be exciting no matter what.
I think that is the 170-pound title fight to make. I think that's a really, really exciting fight. I'm looking forward to watching that one, hopefully. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to watching you compete. And Kevin, I want to give you an opportunity here. If there's anyone that you'd like to thank or anyone that you'd like to shout out before we wrap up here, let's do it.
Yeah, I just want to thank all my friends and family who've supported me through the training camp, and all my teammates who gave me work, all my coaches who, put time and energy into making sure we're as prepared for this opportunity as we can be. Want to thank Raw Farms for supporting me for this my PFL debut, and then Desi Saturdays, who's been with me since the last one. All those guys, all the help and all the energy of those people, it really helps me put out the best product I can in the cage, and I'm just grateful for that and excited to compete.
And we are looking forward to watching you perform here in a few days. Ladies and gentlemen, please follow Kevin on Instagram. I'm going to put all of his information on how you can get a hold of him in the description for this video. I think that's really important. Make sure you do that. Kevin, I appreciate your time. I wish you the best of skill on August 2nd.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.